into that awareness that it is the Christ within that teaches us. So we open up to that inner Christ and let ourselves be informed. Thank you, God. Amen. Thank you so much, Becky and Gehenna Artistry. Thank you so much. Boldness, huh? That boldness. There's more. So we're grateful. Yeah, grateful. All right. Well, this month of July, we are focusing on our Christ power of understanding. And it is that power that lets us know who we really are, that informs us. It's the conduit to our true nature. And so we use affirmations here, statements of truth, not to make them true, but because they are true. And so let's align ourselves with this truth statement, and we will affirm it 3 times so that it can get firmly ingrained in our awareness. So let's affirm this together. Here we go. I am one with the all-knowing mind of God. Divine understanding is awakened in me. Let yourself feel that. Notice that vibration. Let that fullness permeate you. And let's align with it again. I am one with the all-knowing mind of God. Divine understanding is awakened in me. Feel that? Let that fullness come forth. And let's align with it for the 3rd time. I am one with the all-knowing mind of God. Divine understanding is awakened in me. All right. All right, we're going to go from the sacred to the goofy. Are you ready? All right. Okay. So there was a man who was driving around town, and he noticed a sign out in somebody's yard that said, "Talking dog, $10 for sale." So I thought, well, that's interesting. So he goes up to the front door, and he knocks on the door, and he says, "I saw this sign in the yard that says, 'For sale, a talking dog for $10. He says, "Is that true? Does your dog talk?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "The dog's in the backyard if you want to check it out." So the man goes into the backyard. Sure enough, there sits this beagle. So he goes up to the beagle, and he says, "I hear you're a talking dog. Is that true?" The dog says, "Yeah." So the man says, "Well, what's your story?" So the beagle says, "Well," he says, "when I was just a puppy, I realized early on that I could talk. I knew I had this special skill. I wanted to know about my government, so I called up the CIA, and I told them about myself, and they were thrilled. And so they signed me up for the toughest branch of the military, the United States Marines. And they had me do espionage. It was incredible because, of course, who would expect that a dog would be a spy? So actually, I was one of their top spies for 8 years. And they sent me all around the world, just jetting everywhere. It was great because, again, who would suspect that a dog would be a spy? He says, well, after I did that for 8 years, dog years, that's 56 years old, so I was getting kind of tired and sick and tired of jetting around, so I decided to retire. So I did, but I was a little bored, so I got myself a job down there with airport security. And, did a lot of great work there, was part of a lot of interesting cases, and won a lot of medals. Then I decided to fully retire, so I got married, had a bunch of puppies, and here I am. And so the man was like, this is incredible, wow. So he goes back into the house, and he says, that dog's incredible. He says, why in the world are you selling that dog for just $10? He said, oh, him. He said, he is such a liar. He said, he didn't do any of that. His whole career was in the Navy. All right. Okay. So, the question is, which man are we? Which man are you? Which man am I? Am I the one that nitpicks on the surface there about the facts? Or am I the one that has an appreciation for, this is amazing. This is a talking dog. You can make up this elaborate story. Which one am I? Am I living on the surface, or am I living in the depths of wonder? Obviously, the facts are important. It's important to have information. It's important to have knowledge. It's important to be able to live in this earthly existence and know how to work with facts. And they can be very complex, and we can need to put them together in very complex ways. Yes. The problem comes in, though, is when we think that that's all there is, when we think that that's what there is to life, is just knowing and accumulating a lot of facts. And it is my experience that we are a fact-saturated society. Do you agree? It is getting more and more and more and more. And again, facts are a good thing. Information is a good thing, but we have to put it into perspective. What's really different when we begin to open up to our spiritual lives is that we start to recognize that there is a difference between knowledge, which has to do with the ability to know information and to work with facts and to deal with facts in the outer. That's knowledge. There's a difference between that and knowing, which is a much, much deeper experience. It's a whole different world. When we begin to open up to knowing, our lives begin to be lived on a completely different basis. All people have the ability to know, and often it comes to us as intuition, or it comes to us that I just had this feeling, or I just sensed, I wanted to do this, or wanted to do that, or go here or go there. That's good, but I'm here to tell you that's just the beginning of it. That's just a layer. Intuition is a wonderful thing, and it is just the layer that's beneath facts. There's a much deeper layer, and that is the knowing of my true identity. That is the knowing of who I am. That is the knowing, and I don't mean up here in your head. I mean knowing that I am God in expression. That all of God is in me, but I am not all of God. It's always important to keep that in mind. Because we get that mixed up sometimes. Okay. So all of God is in me, and yet I am not all of God, obviously. God's a lot bigger than my individual expression of that. Jesus talked about this knowing of our true identity as the kingdom of the heavens. We talk about it in unity as divine mind. We have many words for it. We talk about it as the I am, or we talk about it as the Christ. It really is all the same thing, and all faith traditions, all spiritual paths have their ways of expressing it, and it is my belief, my opinion, my experience that we're all really talking about the same thing. We have different ways of expressing it, and maybe a little different flavor, or a little different kind of turn of the dial of it, but the experience is universal. Because the truth is, we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. That's the bottom line. And the more that we know that, the more amazing our lives become. We're almost as amazing as Dr. God. When we start to recognize that, when we start to recognize that incredible knowing, because when we start to recognize the knowing, it is as if we have moved into a completely different culture. All of us have had the experience of being in some culture that is different from our own. Maybe we've traveled, or maybe we've simply been around people or been in a situation that have a different culture from us right in our own neighborhood. And when we do that, and when we allow ourselves to let that in, it's a wonderful experience, isn't it? Because we begin to see the world through a completely different lens. We begin to see there's some different, on the human level, that there's some different norms, there's some different expectations, there's probably a different language, and so there's a different way of framing that outer reality. The analogy, that's an analogy to what I'm talking about when we go into that culture, into that kingdom of the heavens, into that land where we are knowing the I am, where we are knowing I'm a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law, the end, bottom line, that's it. That is moving into that other country in a very profound way, much more even profound than being in a different human culture. We find that everything changes. The bottom line about what the norms are, the bottom line about what the realities are, the bottom line about what the expectations are, frankly, the bottom line about what the language is different. It's different than when we're just living out here in earth plane and think that's all there is to it. Because when we are living from that place of the I am, we're living in the kingdom of the heavens, then we begin to have a new sense of reassurance. When we're living out here on earth, we're not too reassured. And I mean just in the consciousness. We're living in earth, we're human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. But I'm talking about what you're aware of. Where's your attitudes? Where's your values coming from? If we're just living out here, we're not too reassured. We feel like we're separate from everybody, right? I'm alone, I came in alone, going out alone. Oh, grand. Okay? It's not the truth. It's what happens on earth plane. Yes, that's the human experience, but it's not the truth. The truth is, when we're living in the kingdom of the heavens, is that we are one with everybody and everything. We are gently and beautifully and wonderfully loved from the beginning to the end, from before and after, beyond. This is just a little parenthesis, this earth plane thing. And we are always one with all. We are not, it's impossible to be alone, for we're one with all. So when we live in the kingdom of the heavens, we're living in that reassurance of divine companionship, of divine oneness, all the time. We sang that, didn't we? I love that song. God is good. All the time. That's the truth. That is the truth. So when we live in the kingdom of the heavens, we're living in divine reassurance. When we live in the kingdom of the heavens, we are living in divine abundance. When we're just living from the consciousness of earth plane, I got to tell you, it's rough out there. You just never know. I mean, your money might run out, the job might run out, the health might run out, the opportunities might run out, the relationships might run out, and it all might go sour. Who knows? You don't know what's going to happen. Okay, all that stuff goes on out here. Okay, that's part of life. But the consciousness is of true abundance. And so whatever's going on, when I return to my true home, like I am in the kingdom of the heavens, then there's always abundance, there's always open doors, there's always wholeness, there's always harmony, there's always well-being, there's always enough. And that's not some magic trick, but when we cultivate that living from that place, and it is work, my experience of it is, it's work to deal with my consciousness, okay? Oh my goodness, all right? So when we deal with that, what happens is a little bit at a time, gradually, what begins to happen is that we're always okay. Whatever's going on, we have that kingdom of the heavens culture to meet it with. Because we have that knowing that this is, and now you can say it with me, I am a spiritual being, living in a spiritual universe, governed by spiritual laws. The end, bottom line, no more. Ain't no more to say about it. That's the truth. And as we live in that place, we transform what goes on in our minds, and we become more and more and more informed by the Christ mind. That does not mean that we float above the floor, all right? We're humans, and we have the ability to live from a much more abundant and a much more wonderful and a much more hopeful place. When we enter into divine understanding, first of all, we come through the intellect, and we come through learning about spirituality. We come in getting information about a spiritual path. We come in learning information. We take classes, we read books. All of that is wonderful. We talk to each other, and we continue to do that. However, and all of our Unity authors will say this, and it's everywhere if you look in any faith tradition, when you really read the real stuff, the people that are living it, what you'll find out is they say, that's nice. It's a good thing that you have a lot of information. However, what do you know? What do you know? And how are you living your life? How are you treating yourself? Are you treating yourself with kindness? Are you treating yourself with respect? How are you treating the people next to you that are your family? How are you treating your friends? How are you treating the people that you encounter at work or in your volunteering or as you just go about your business? The people that are giving you service in various ways as you shop or do whatever you need to do. Where are you coming from? Are you a stinker? Well, we all kind of go there sometimes, don't we? All right. And what we're invited to do is to quit it. Just cut it out. Because obviously, if we're being a stinker, we're not knowing, are we, who we are. And if we know who we are, then that is absolutely the axiomatic is that we're going to know who the next person is. And so we come to that place more and more every day where we can't treat ourselves poorly anymore. We have lost that ability, and I'm here to tell you that's a good day. It kind of comes and goes, but we get better at it. I think it's a spiral, and we get better at it, and we get better at how we treat one another. I have no doubt that every one of us here wants world peace. I have no doubt that every one of us here wants a culture and a society where we're all in the circle and it's all good and we're holding each other up and everyone lives with dignity and respect. I have no doubt that everybody here wants that. And what I know from what is that the only way that happens is when one person at a time we do the work and learn to respect ourselves and do whatever it takes to make that happen and learn to respect each other. And that's what ripples out, and that's what transforms how we get along in this world. And that is essential that we do that work. Jesus talked about it in this way, or this is what's in the Gospels. This is in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 3, verses 11 and 12. And what it's talking about metaphysically is moving from the intellect to the spirit, moving from that place of having a lot of information to moving to that place of knowing, to that place of doing, to that place of living, which again is a continual journey. And so I share this with you. John the Baptist metaphysically symbolizes the enlightened intellect. That's where we have to start, is getting new information. But it's also clear that it's not enough. If we want to grow spiritually, we got to keep going. So here we go. So hear this with your metaphysical ears. And this is John the Baptist talking to his disciples. He says, I baptize with water for repentance. So what he's meaning is I'm here to cleanse your mind, to give you some new information and some new ideas. And that was essential, that he come first. But then John the Baptist goes on and he says, but one who is more powerful than I is coming after me. I'm not worthy to carry his sandals. Now, again, metaphysically, we understand the feet and shoes as having to do with understanding. So what John the Baptist is saying, as good as this is, as important as it is, that I'm here to help you change your mind, to let go of some old ideas and to get some new ideas, I'm here to tell you it's not enough, because if you stop there, you're not going to understand anything. You're not going to understand anything. You're not going to have anything to stand on, because I can't even carry the sandals of that next phase. The intellect can't carry it. It's got to be more. And so he goes on, and John the Baptist says, he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. The Holy Spirit is that aspect of the Trinity, and metaphysically we understand it, that aspect of the Trinity that moves through us. It's the movement of God in our lives. It's the power of God. It's the presence of God that is always working with us and waking us up and saying, hey, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And is always with us and is counseling us and is guiding us and is powering our lives. And the fire is letting, it's not hell. That should be reassuring, right? Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. Baptizing with fire is the burning up of all that you don't need. So all that stuff, all the old hurts, all the old wounds, all the old experiences that are packed away in the subconscious, when we have learned what we can learn from them, then they get released. The fire, fire turns things into ash. We don't need it anymore. It releases it. So we take the good, we take the learning, and it releases, and we move forward. And so he says, John the Baptist goes on, and he says, his winnowing fork, meaning the Christ presence, is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor, and will gather his wheat into the granary. But the chaff will burn with unquenchable fire. Again, not talking about hell here. Talking about that which we don't need will be gone, and we will be more clear. We'll be that wheat, that thing that is nourishment to live our lives from that place. And my friends, that is the truth about living the Christ. Karl Barth, who was an incredible theologian in the mid part of the 20th century and to the end of it, said this. He's talking about prayer, and prayer is certainly that avenue. Prayer, I'm talking about prayer in the big sense, is that avenue through which we come to the I Am, through which we know the I Am. So Karl Barth said, to clasp the hands in prayer is the beginning of an uprising against the disorder of the world. To clasp the hands in prayer means to come to the willingness to know my identity is an uprising against the disorder in the world. Think about it. An uprising, right? An uprising. I'm willing to see it differently. I'm willing to know from a different place. I'm willing to live in that spiritual universe. I'm always living in it anyway, I'm just not conscious of it. I'm willing to live in that spiritual universe. Hey, there's more than you think, right? Let's pray. Father God, we give thanks for the truth about us. We give thanks for the divine essence of our nature. We give thanks that you love us so much that we humans have the ability to live in oneness, in communion with you all the time. And so it is. Amen. Amen.